Hi guys, today we're going to talk about completing the square. So in this lesson, we're going to solve equations by completing the square. And first we should look at some examples of what are perfect square quadratics. Okay, so this equation here is a perfect square because it can be written as x plus 3 times x plus 3, which is x plus 3 squared. So that's a perfect square. Okay. This one here can be written as x minus 4 times x minus 4, which is x minus 4 squared. Okay. This one here could be x minus 1 times x minus 1, which is x minus 1 squared. So those are all perfect squares. Okay. That's why those are perfect square trinomials, because they're the square of a binomial. Okay. So now sometimes we have ones quadratics that you cannot write them as a perfect square. For example, x squared minus 4x plus 2 is not a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so how do we make it a perfect square? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this, we're going to get rid of this number right here because that's the number that makes it not a perfect square. So this is going to be x squared minus 4x. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, and so I'm going to get negative 2 over here. Okay? Now, to make this a perfect square, I'm going to take this number right here. I'm going to take half of that, and I'm going to square it. So half of negative 4 is negative 2. I'm going to square that. That's going to be 4. I'm going to add that number to both sides of this equation. Okay? Now, what am I going to get? I'm going to get x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 2. Now, this is a perfect square. I've completed the square. Now I can solve this thing because I can write this as x minus 2 times x minus 2, and that equals 2. And this can be written as x minus 2 squared, which equals 2. And then I can solve this by taking the square root of both sides, and so I'm going to get x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 2. Now, don't try to turn that into a decimal. Just leave it like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add 2 to both sides, and I'm going to get x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 2. And that is my two solutions to this problem, x plus the square root of 2 and x minus the square root of 2. Okay, so I've solved that by completing the square. If I were to take these two numbers and plug them in here, I would get 0. All right, now look at this one here. This one's a lot tougher. Well, a little tougher because it's got a number here in front. It's got a leading coefficient that's not 1. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to divide this whole thing by 4. Okay, so I'm going to get x squared plus 1/2 x minus 5/4 equals, now 0 divided by 4 is just 0. So now this is still not a perfect square. I'm going to get rid of this number here. I'm going to add that to both sides. So I'm going to get x squared plus 1/2 x equals 5/4. Okay, this one's going to be a little bit tough because it's got fractions in it. Okay, so you can still do it though. I'm going to take this number right here, 1/2. I'm going to take half of that, and I'm going to square it. Okay, so this is 1/4 squared is 1/16. I'm going to add that to both sides. Plus a 16th here, plus a 16th here. Okay, so I'm going to get x squared plus 1/2 x plus a 16th. Okay, and then that's going to equal, let's see, this is going to be 16ths, it's going to be 20 16ths, this is going to be 21 16ths. Okay. Now, now I'm going to factor this. So this is going to factor down to x plus 1/4, x plus 1/4, which is otherwise known as x plus 1/4 squared. It's going to be 21/16 over here. Okay. Now I can go ahead and I can square root both sides here. Okay. And when I do that, I'm going to get x plus 1/4 here. This is going to equal plus or minus the square root of 21 over 4. Okay, because the square root of 21 is just the square root of 21, and the square root of 16 is 4. And now I'm just going to subtract the 1/4. So x is going to equal -1 over 4 plus or minus the square root of 21 over 4, which I can combine that and make it look like this. And I'm done. Don't try to turn it into a decimal, just leave it as an exact answer. Okay? Okay, TV screens are measured by the length of the diagonal. The TV screen below has a 98-inch diagonal. Okay, so this screen from here to here, 98 inches. That's how you measure a television. It's not those two dimensions. Okay? Now, it says the screen is 37 inches wider than it is high. So if this is x, this would be x plus 37. Now I got to find the dimensions of the screen. Okay, so I know that x plus 37 times x times 1/2. So I'm sorry, that's not right. Let's try it again. This is a quadratic formula, or I'm sorry, this is a Pythagorean theorem here. So I get x squared plus x plus 37 squared should equal the hypotenuse, which is 98 squared. So the first leg squared plus the second leg squared is the hypotenuse squared. Okay. So this is going to be x squared plus, this is going to be x squared plus 74x plus 37 squared. Don't have that one in my memory. That's 1,369 equals 98 squared. That's 9,604. Okay. Now let's combine our like terms. This is 2x squared plus 74x. Now, this is not going to be a perfect square, so I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to take 9604 and I'm going to subtract 1369. This is going to equal 8,235. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and divide, since I got a leading coefficient that's not 1. I'm going to go ahead and divide this whole thing by 2. Okay, so I'm going to get x squared plus 37x equals 8,235 divided by 2. That's going to be 4,117.5. Okay, now I want to complete the square here. So I'm going to take half of 37 and I'm going to square that. Okay, so 0.5 times 37, 18.5 squared. That's 342.25. Add that to both sides. And I'm going to get x squared plus 37x plus 342.25 is going to equal 4,459.75. Now, this we can factor down. Oh, let's see. square root of 342.25. It's going to be 18.5. So this is x plus 18.5 squared. It's going to equal this over here. Okay, let's go ahead and square root both sides of this thing. So I'm going to get x plus 18.5. It's going to equal plus or minus the square root of 4459.75. It's going to equal 66.78 approximately. And obviously I don't want the negative number on this because it'd give me a negative number for one of the sides, and that's not going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 18.5 just from the plus. Okay, so 66.78 minus 18.5 tells me that one side is going to be 48.28. That's going to be the x side. And then the other side should be 37 more than that. So that's going to be 85.28. So the length would equal 85.28 inches. And the width, or the height, is going to be 48.28 inches. Okay. Now, we should double check this. So 85.28 squared plus 48.28 squared is 9,603. And I square root that. And I get 97.998, which rounds to 98 inches. So there we go. We got it worked out. Alrighty. What fun that was. Okay, got a little assignment for you. Now, here's a little extra credit for you. We have something called the quadratic formula, which you should already know. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That gives us the answers too. I could have used that to solve this equation right here. Okay. Why is that the formula? Can you prove that formula? Well, you should be able to do this. I have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. The first thing I want to do is I want to divide this whole thing by a. Okay? So I get x squared plus b over ax plus c over a equals 0. Okay, let's complete the square. So we'll go ahead and subtract this from both sides. And I get x squared plus b over ax equals negative c over a. Okay, now we're going to complete the square. So we are going to take b over a, take half of that, and square it. So that's going to be b over 2a squared, which is going to be b squared over 4a squared. I'm going to add that to both sides. Plus b squared over 4a squared. Okay. So over here I'm going to get x squared plus b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared is going to equal these two things added together. Now, I need a common denominator here to add these together. I need this to be 4a squared, which means I'm going to multiply the bottom by 4a. So I'm going to multiply the top by 4a. So this is going to be negative 4. I'm sorry. We're going to go ahead and put it in a different order. It's going to be b squared minus 4ac So b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Okay. Now, let's factor this. This is going to be x plus b over 2a. X plus b over 2a. This is going to be b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Now, this can be rewritten as x plus b over 2a squared. This will just leave alone. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and square root both sides. Okay, so what do we get when we do that? Well, we're going to get x plus b over 2a here is going to equal plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and the square root of the denominator is going to be 2a. And now what we can do is we can subtract b over 2a from both sides, and we get x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, and there is our quadratic formula right there. If you wanted some extra credit on maybe a test, you might want to know how to do that. Okay, have fun with that stuff. I will see you guys later.